First story. I mistakenly got pregnant with my affair partner, and my husband's had a breakdown about why I cheated on him rather than caring about my pregnancy, when he was the one who neglected me doing his job and hobbies. So how can I make him not divorce me? I've been having what I just recently learned is an emotional affair for 6 months that got physical recently. But just once, unplanned and with irresponsibility, was enough for this to happen. I admit I was a coward. The day after it happened, I thought about coming clean to my husband, but I just couldn't get the courage. I don't love him like I used to, but I still care for him and our daughter, and I hope the love could just reignite like it has done before. So I asked affair partner for distance and to reset our boundaries, and then just pretend like it never happened. But 2 weeks ago I found out I'm pregnant. I took 3 tests and cried the whole afternoon in disbelief. I have been shut down since. 2 days ago, I told a close friend of mine what happened and asked her to come to an abortion clinic with me. But when we got there, I just couldn't do it. I literally had a mental breakdown and just couldn't even leave her car. What is wrong with me? I've always been pro-choice. I don't want to lose our family, and I know if I have this child, I'll only hurt my husband even more and lessen the chance of forgiveness. But I just can't do it. I now want to come clean. I want to take responsibility for what happened and tell my husband everything, if possible, and if he lets me help him process everything. All this while juggling the even bigger chance of a divorce if I don't go through with an abortion. So please, if anyone could, lend me some of his perspective on what can happen and what will go through his mind. I really want to mend this. I just have no idea what to do after coming clean. Update. It was simultaneously the hardest thing I've ever done and the most I've ever hurt someone. I had left our daughter at my parents' earlier, so with an empty house, he was free to shout. It was the closest I've ever seen him come into tears, red-faced and pacing around the living room with an angry strut, either calling me degrading names or stupid for getting pregnant. And I sat there, deserving it and answering questions about that night. I told him I'm willing to quit my job if he wishes. I'm willing to move and get us some counseling. He hasn't said anything regarding these topics, so I'm guessing he's also taking his time to think. Afterwards, he just sat on the couch and asked me to leave him alone. He was planning on spending the night there until I told him I was spending the night with my friend to give him space. The same one that I asked to accompany me to the abortion clinic and helped me when I broke down and couldn't go through with it. And after all that, the thing that broke my heart the most was him thanking me for leaving the house and muttering a crooked "I love you" before I left. Today, I thought he'd just ignore me and grieve what I've done. I thought he'd take some time to think about things and what he wants to do. But instead, I got my phone bombed with texts with questions. I answered every single one of them crudely and truthfully, as advised here. But some were just so hard to answer. Like, would you ever tell me if you hadn't gotten knocked up? The single hardest no I have ever typed. I admit I took a while to send that answer, but I did it anyway. Others left me confused as to why he'd want to know the answer. And I truthfully don't want to ask him why he needs to know this. So hopefully someone here can give me some perspective. Why does he need to know if I came? If we did oral? If he was bigger? In what positions? If he was good? I'm certain all of these answers will hurt him even more. I thought the biggest and serious topic that would worry him the most would have been the baby. But instead I can feel that he's dancing around the pregnancy. Now as for me, I'll be spending this week at my friend. Me and my husband are both emotional wrecks right now, and I just asked my parents if they could take care of our daughter for the week, and they agreed. But is there anything besides giving him space and answering his questions that I should do right now? My heart aches knowing he's alone and suffering in our house. So if there's the tiniest thing I can do to help, I'll do it. To finish up this post, I'll just say that tomorrow, Monday, I'll ask my affair partner to meet me after work and tell him about the pregnancy. The hardest is out of the way, but I'm still not looking forward to this one. Edit. I'm asking my husband about his opinion on meeting affair partner tomorrow. Thank you for your suggestions and insight. It may be harsh, but I'll take it gladly if I can avoid mistakes like meeting affair partner without telling my husband, even if for a few minutes after work. Update. First of all, I want to thank the Reddit users that urged me not to talk with my affair partner after work without my husband's knowledge. I asked him about it, and he demanded he'd be there when I told the affair partner about the baby. I agreed, therefore postponing telling my affair partner about the pregnancy until next weekend, on the condition that my friend and her husband come with us. To prevent any fistfights. He agreed without second thought. And a thank you to user Attic regarding his legal advice here. I'll touch more on it later. There are really harsh comments in my threads, but they are worth it if it means I can scrape off some advice that can save my marriage. Today, my husband asked to meet me in person, and I agreed. We talked about our lives and events that led to that night, as well as the true problems we've been having. And then he asked me to tell him my side of the story face to face now that he's with a clearer head. I'm not going into detail because I'd need several other threads for that. But to cut it short, I begged, cried, and asked for forgiveness 1,000 times as I answered every question he had and told him everything, since I'm super worried about him. I tried to ask him how he's feeling, what he's been thinking, and what he has been doing. But in the end, he's stone cold and didn't want to tell me much. I respected his space and tried not to pry much longer. I know him, and if he doesn't want to talk, no one will get it out of him. In the end, he said if it wasn't for the pregnancy, he would be willing to forgive me under a certain condition. He says that in a few months, they'll be expanding his office, and he is willing to pull some strings so I could go work with him. I'll have to start with an apprenticeship to learn how to use a certain program. And in the first year, the pay will be substantially less. But since there is some experience that carries over from my current job, I should get a significant bump in salary after the first year. I immediately said yes. But then came the hard part. He asked me if I had any second thoughts regarding an abortion, and I told him the truth. I'm willing to give in to everything, except an abortion. No matter how many times I apologized and said I love him, it didn't matter. I could see how hurt he was when I made it clear that is the one stance I'm not backing. He simply said that he loves me, that he wants to make the marriage work, but that I'm asking too much. He'll need more time to come to a decision, because no matter how much he wants to work things out, he's not sure he can love another man's child like his own. After this, I told my husband about what Usporadic pointed out in that Reddit thread. I told him I'm willing to divorce him while we work on reconciliation, if it means I'm freeing him from the legal burden of taking care of a child that isn't his. If he is to help me raise this child, I want it out of his own free will rather than the law forcing it on him. Here he simply said that he is going to take it into consideration, but then raised a question that if he were to divorce me, wouldn't that basically force a fair partner into our lives, as being a co-parent with legal rights like mine? Since none of us are law experts, we're putting this topic on standby, and we'll search for some legal counseling before making a decision. Oh, and I almost forgot about this. Monday, we scheduled our first counseling session for next Friday. I'll probably create another thread about how that went. Additionally, seeing as we're both emotional wrecks, we also agreed that our daughter will stay with my parents and with my in-laws for a while, and that I'm the one that's going to inform them of what happened and why we need them to take care of her right now. Finally, I just want to answer some repetitive comments in the last threads and clear some things up. I'm not leaving my husband for my affair partner. My husband is and will always be my first choice. I worded it really poorly in my first post when I said I don't love him like I used to, because the keywords in that phrase were supposed to be like I used to, and never I don't love him. Our marriage had been very passionless in the last couple of months, be it physically or emotionally, since both of us had put other things in front of our marriage. I know I said in the last thread that I wouldn't quit my job if my husband wanted a divorce, but for obvious reasons that has changed. Divorce is a real possibility depending on what we gather from legal counseling, and so is the possibility of us both divorcing and reconciliation. Also, for one, I fully trust my husband to not leave me hanging with the apprenticeship. We have a daughter in elementary school, and in his words, he doesn't want the mother of his daughter scrapping by. And since the apprenticeship is still months away, we have time to judge how things are going. I'm seriously glad I stood my ground against Reddit and didn't rashly quit my job just because Reddit told me to. Not only do I now think my husband would be angry about that, but it'd seriously make everything so much harder. And the last thing I want to address, I beg of you, please stop with the abortion comments and privates. I know how it can hurt my husband. For heaven's sake, it hurts me to think that a baby that is the representation of a violation of my own values is growing inside me. I can't even begin to imagine how my husband feels. I have always been pro-choice. If my husband got someone else pregnant, I'd want her to have an abortion. I can completely relate to everyone telling me to get it, because I'd be urging someone else in my situation to do the same. There hasn't been a single day I haven't been tempted to go to the abortion clinic to make it go away and ease up everything for everyone. But I simply can't. It feels invasive. It feels wrong. I've had a daughter grow inside me, and I can feel the same connection growing with this bunch of cells. It's completely illogical. I know I'm being completely illogical, and all that just makes my own cowardice the more confusing and hurtful. So you can call me a W. You can call me stupid, selfish, irresponsible, disloyal. I know the moment I cheated I became all of that. and I'm willing to tolerate all of it if it means I'm learning and thriving to be the better person my husband deserves. Just please stop throwing around the word abortion, as if it isn't haunting me as the obvious choice I know I should make. Update. Today, we had our first session of marriage counseling, and the main conclusion was we should have started it sooner. Like way sooner, when the problems really started, and we thought everything was okay. It was refreshing to say the least, and listening to a second person's opinion that is not biased to my side like my friend, or that could listen to the full story unlike Reddit, only broadened my perspective on what happened. It began with the counselor asking me how the started. I told him how I have known a fair partner since I started working at my job, but we didn't talk much. Our daily interactions started about 7 months when our offices reopened after remodeling during COVID, and we were put on the same team with our desks besides each other. Below is more or less how it started to how it ended, along with some conclusions our talk helped me reach. It started off innocently. Discovering common interests and getting to know each other brought us closer. Naturally, I introduced him to my husband, and from there on out, I started inviting him to come along to have some drinks with our group of friends, where he fit in pretty nicely. I never had to hide anything from my husband, and he never suspected anything simply because I didn't have anything to hide, and I was pretty open about everything. I was that comfortable with my husband, and he was that comfortable with me. My husband knew what me and a fair partner talked about through text, since I often showed him pictures and memes and included him in the jokes. I also always told him when and where I was with my affair partner or any other friend, and he never had a problem with it. I never flirted or did anything remotely sexual with my affair partner. In truth, we were really good friends that had begun an overly close emotional connection, selfishly, and while taking my marriage for granted, I started making more time for my new friend and just spending less time with my husband. We shared everything with one another, from details from our childhood to problems in our current lives. I had had some sexual thought, of course, but rationalized them as normal, like someone does when they see someone they're attracted to. I was too deep in the affair to see what really was going on. I had fallen for my affair partner and taken my husband for granted. But at the same time, I didn't really believe I would cheat. I had this ingrained strict idea that cheating was only having sex with someone other than yourself. I had no idea what an emotional affair was, so in my mind, what I was doing wasn't cheating. I was only having fun and enjoying another person's presence. I had assumed my husband would always be there, and I was more interested in spending time with someone else. In the end, neither I nor my husband saw my affair partner as a threat to our marriage. I was too comfortable. I assumed I'd stay with my husband forever, and something like me cheating would never happen. However, I never did anything to prevent it from happening, and so I am to blame. At the same time, my husband was doing the same thing, except he wasn't getting his time filled by another person, but rather a homicide project he had been working on for over a year. Both our libidos dropped, and we were just okay not spending time with one another. The scary thing is that we didn't hate one another. We were just okay not going on dates anymore and accepted how each of us decided to use their free time. In both our minds, what I was doing wasn't cheating, and I was more than happy to let my husband do his projects. Afterwards, the counselor compared my affair to the story of the frog and boiling pot. If you put a frog on a boiling pot, it will jump out in fear. But if instead you put it in the pot at room temperature, it will simply sit there and bathe. If then you raise the temperature little by little, the frog will remain there, not noticing anything until the water is too hot and the frog is boiling alive. In this metaphor, he says our marriage isn't dead, though he thinks it is in critical conditions with third-degree burns, and that these wounds and scars will take a lot of time and effort to heal. Now this is not an excuse. I am still guilty and responsible for having sex with my affair partner in the same way I'd be responsible for killing that frog. If we apply the boiling pot metaphor to that night, though on a much smaller scale, we can see a string of small decisions that led me there. Nothing wrong happened when our group separated, and I decided not to go see the game with my husband. Nothing wrong happened when our group arrived at my affair partner's apartment. Nothing wrong happened while we drank and played board games. And if you look at it from my past perspective, there's nothing wrong with two friends staying late at night to talk about stuff. However, every single action that led to getting comfortable with him became morally dubious. And when he kissed me and I didn't stop him, I became responsible for everything that led to having unprotected sex. After talking about my affair, he shifted focus to my husband, and I stayed quiet as I realized what he was doing. He had tried to get my husband's input while we talked about the affair and that night. But my husband doesn't open up easily and would never say directly how he felt about something, especially not to a stranger, even if we're paying for it. He is a stone wall, something I've always thought is unhealthy. And I've always hated that is how he deals with problems. But the moment the counselor started assuming or theorizing things in the form of statements, he just started to agree or deny things. And I cannot begin to describe how my heart crumbled listening to them. He said 3 things that completely broke me. He agreed that he felt stupid because he didn't notice I was falling for my affair partner, and he didn't do anything. He agreed he was selfish and stupid for spending time on his hobby instead of me. He's been drinking to try and take the images of me having sex with another man off his head. I don't want him to feel like this. I want to help him heal. Sadly, no matter how much the counselor tried, he completely avoided the topic of my pregnancy and our sex life. The most I could gather is that he still doesn't know what to do. He didn't go beyond what I knew. He's willing and wants to forgive, but isn't sure he is capable of fathering a baby that isn't his. I absolutely hate myself for how my husband feels. I hated listening to him say he feels stupid about not noticing and not doing anything. I hated listening to him depreciate his hobbies. I love listening to him talk enthusiastically about them, even though I don't particularly enjoy them. In fact, I was planning on making more time to accompany him. I really hope he doesn't change his hobbies. As for the drinking, I know that's how he usually copes with bad news, so I can't say I'm not used to it. But I still hate it when he does it, because it means he's seriously suffering. Though, I must admit, hearing that he's willing and wants to forgive fills me with bittersweet hope. The session was now ending, and by that point I had become too emotional and started to cry right there. Finally, the counselor suggested we each schedule individual counseling next week, each on different days. Now I'm here, left to ponder. I must admit it felt good to write this out. If you guys have any input on what happened, feel free to tell me. Super short update. I didn't even think I would need to write an update about this. But I've received so many messages asking the same that I just had to make this post to save my drowning inbox. Last weekend, my husband backtracked on telling affair partner and our parents about my pregnancy. He still hasn't told me why, and when I asked, he said he'll let me know when he makes up his mind. So yeah, here's the update people have been asking. Do note, I'm posting this from mobile, so today I'm not going to stick around and answer to the comments as quickly as I did previously. Second story. My husband caught me cheating, and now he is playing with my emotions. My husband 25M and I 24F have been together for 4 years, married almost 2. I was in a really bad relationship before my now husband, and was technically still in one with my BD when my husband and I got together. BD and I were on a break, and then broke up. Fast forward 2 years, we got married. I told myself that my husband was the love of my life. He still is, but the divorce is happening because of me. Everything started falling apart around Christmas of 2023. I didn't feel appreciated enough at home. Not enough love and affection because my husband is not that type of guy. But I have also expressed multiple times what I wanted him to say to me to make me feel good. What I wanted him to do around the house, etc. I got tired of feeling like a maid since we both work. He works longer hours. But I did everything around the house, and since he works nights, I also have to cook dinner. I hate cooking. I cannot cook, period. I burn literally the simplest things. I don't know how to cook, even following recipes. Some things will turn out well, and most things won't. I hate cooking. And my husband will leave his clothes laying around everywhere, trash and food in the kitchen. He won't clean up after himself, including his game room. I was getting tired of it. I know this is no reason to, but with the holidays being so busy, I had to work 6 days a week, and there was a guy at work that made me feel appreciated about my body. Said I looked good, etc. Said stuff my husband refused to say because he's not that type of person, and it felt nice. So working those 6 days a week for that month, we got closer. I know it was super wrong. I ended up doing something I have never done before this guy, and I never had as ex. But my husband refuses to believe me, which I get since the trust is broken. But I ended up sending a few videos over Snapchat to him. You know, with a dildo. And for some stupid reason, my dumb bar saved them into my eyes only. I don't know why. But my husband went into my phone when I was out of the room and went into there to send himself something, while he was gone for the weekend at drill, and found those videos. At this point, 6 months have already passed, and I completely forgot about them. Yes, I still worked with the guy, but in a different department, so I no longer talked to him. My husband confronted me about it, and I still sadly lied about it. He was gone for 4 days for drill, and I still didn't come clean until he got home. He went straight for divorce, wants to sell the house, and started sleeping on the couch. It was rough and terrible for the first couple weeks. He made conditions if we wanted to work out. I have to start going to church, go to therapy, get a new job and work on myself, and move in with family. But we are still getting a divorce and selling the house. He refuses to fight for us since to him. This happened a month ago. He left for 2 weeks on June 1st, and we got closer. He wanted me to text him and send pics of me and my daughter of what we were doing, basically updating him on our lives every hour. He was losing his mind while in another state. He gets back home the 15th, and he is a horn dog. He says he misses me, and he loves me, etc. And we have had more sex the past month and a half than we have had all year. He is getting deployed to Alaska at the beginning of September. And one of his conditions for us to work out is that we still get divorced. But we both stay faithful to one another. And then we meet up when he comes back and we talk. If we have stayed faithful and not moved on, then we try again. But he doesn't want me going on family vacation with him and his family next month, even though we have been acting like husband and wife again. But yet he can take my daughter to his nephew's birthday party so she can see all her cousins and go swimming. I don't find it fair since I am not included. Yes, I get it. I screwed up. I'm paying for it by us getting divorced. But I feel like it's not fair that my daughter gets to go and do all these things that I want to experience too, with her and with the family. After all, I am still a part of it since we are not divorced yet. I also feel like I am being used by my husband because we are still having sex and doing things we shouldn't be doing. But he's not wanting to try to work on fixing this marriage. I am the only one trying. He doesn't want to try until after he gets back from his deployment because he doesn't want to get hurt again. He thinks I'll be unfaithful while he is gone if we stay married. And he doesn't want to have to deal with the divorce after he gets back. But I have done all that he has asked. I got a new job. I started going to church. And I am going to therapy. But I have nowhere to go. I can't put my daughter on the street. He said that his family is willing to take her in. No, that is not happening. They want to shut me out and act a certain way towards me. They don't get my daughter. Especially if my husband and I are divorcing. I just don't find all of this fair. And I know it is all of my fault. But I am hurting and tired of being the only one fighting for this marriage. Tired of being used because he doesn't want to get his ex anywhere else because he knows I'll give it since I'm still his wife. What do I do? What do we do? I know he is hurting, but I am also hurting just as much. I have no one else to talk to. I am completely lost. I love him too much to lose him, but he thinks that I don't love him. He is my rock. I feel safe when I am in his arms. All the chaos in the world goes away, and my anxiety about everything calms. He is my calm, my home, and the best stepdad to my daughter. She loves him very much, and it's going to break me even more with all of this. I need help. Advice, please. Comments. In response to a now deleted comment. OP. No. I know what I did was wrong, and I shouldn't have done it. I should have talked to him about our relationship and what needed to be worked on. Trust me, I have tried multiple times, and it has gotten nowhere. I was getting fed up. I felt like I was a maid and not good enough. He would show that love and affection to my daughter, but not to me, and when I brought it up and asked him about it, he said, "You make me too mad." So he didn't think that he had to show that love and affection towards me like that. When I would stop making him mad is when he would do that. He never complimented me on what I wore. Never said I looked beautiful. He said that I didn't impress him enough, even though I would buy outfits and try different outfits on, and then proceed to ask him how I looked. He still didn't say much, but be like, "Okay, they're clothes." He hated it when I spent money to buy clothes since he didn't want me spending money at all. I have expressed what I wanted and what I was tired of and got nowhere. He is terrible at communication since he is terrible with emotions. And the guy at work made me feel what I wanted at home. It meant nothing since I wanted it from my husband. Now that we are getting divorced, my husband is calling me beautiful. He is playing with my emotions, and this is all not okay. This is all not on me either. Yes, the emotionally cheating is my fault. But it is both parties' fault for why it happened. OP. He is not making me homeless. He is wanting me to move in with family. But since that is difficult right now since none of my family is able to take my daughter and me in, I have to get an apartment. But that is also difficult because where we live, there are no apartments available or even affordable. He said he would be willing to help out with rent for a couple of months for me because he doesn't want to see us on the street. My daughter is not able to live with her dad since I have full custody, and her dad is not a stable person with no job, no vehicle, etc. I suggested couples therapy. He didn't want it at first, but then changed his mind because he did it for me. But we only went twice because he had already made up his mind about the divorce, and it's not changing. He said that he will do his own therapy when he is deployed. But our marriage did get better. We got better after December. He says it was because of my guilt. I don't know. I think it was because the holidays were over and we were able to reconnect and be better. I wasn't working 6 days anymore, and he wasn't working long hours anymore. Everything started to become perfect and fall into place from January until a month and a half ago. I told him I would wait for him. I am changing for him because all I want is him. I am also communicating with him as much as possible. He deleted all my social media besides Facebook because that's where I have family. And he keeps track of my location at all times. I am doing all that I can and more. At least I hope so. He wants me to initiate SX more. But how can I with everything that's going on? New Patriot 57. The positive here is that at least you recognize your shortcoming. To be blunt, why Tia you're the arse here? You let a sense of loneliness and need for attention ego stroking break up your family. Any chance at reconciliation is going to depend on your honesty and complete remorse. Everything else will depend on your husband's strength and willingness to forgive. He will never forget and may never fully trust you again. OP. I know. I am working on that. That is why I am going to therapy to work on myself, not only for me, but for my family. It's just super hard right now when he is playing with my emotions. I don't know what he wants. 1 minute we are fine, being all lovey-dovey and best friends, that's what he wants, and being intimate. And then the next he's talking about selling the house and getting divorced still and limiting contact. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.